Okay, Arnold?
Okay, now, okay.
Okay. So Group C, Pat Frost, yes. Sonny Hayward. Yeah. Sonny's here. Bob Borden, no. Sarah Supahan. Sarah, I think, had another short conflict at the beginning with some other meeting with the state. Hopefully she will join us shortly. How about Nick Gillette? No Nick, so we've got a problem. We don't have a quorum in Group C. That means we can't vote. It doesn't mean we can't get ourselves organized so that we could vote when others join us. Hopefully others will join us. Maybe.
Dylan's gonna call Nick really quick and see if Nick can come on.
But that'd be great if someone would call Nick. I had an email from Nick earlier today, so I'm guessing it's diaper time or something.
He might be running on the 4:30 timeline as well, so
Yeah, because
you can jump in.
yeah, but if somebody's going to give him a call, hopefully he'll join in.
Dylan's going to give him a call, and I'm going to give Sarah a call just to see. Hopefully, I'm not interrupting anything she's doing. But
Okay,
I'll give her a call and report back.
And then
I just texted Jeff.
okay, Carol Fall just sent a text to Jeff Morris. Ooh, the screen's all moved around. I hate it when you guys jump around like that.
We will be able to see if somebody comes on because in the lower corner down there that says there's 14% participants. And
If you look at my screen as the host, you can see them with their names, but unless they turn their camera on, you can't see them on the meeting.
we won't know for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't clear. It would be good if they were comfortable.
So if you have your camera on, you show up on the in the meeting on Zoom. And if you have your camera off, you don't show up.
But your name shows up.
No.
So I'm gonna jump in here. So this is Jill. I'm moderating a meeting for you. So what happens is in the boardroom, everybody's got their monitors in front of them, and it works a little bit different here. If you don't have your camera on, all of your fellow committee members cannot see you at all. I can see your name there in the black box, but that's not really helpful to them. So if you're comfortable having your camera on, it makes them feel like the participation is kind of two-way more so.
Okay, so we'll hold off on voting on the minutes. We can't do that yet, but we could get some designated federal official comments if there are any from Tara.
Sure. I would just like to thank everyone for making some more time. I think we did a lot of good work on the front end of this to make this part of the process go fairly smoothly. I think that the committee, I've been very, very pleased with everyone's engagement. So I want to continue to ask you to stay engaged, the spreadsheets and the tools that went out. If they get away from you a little bit, or if you have some questions, please don't hesitate to speak up. But I think we're well positioned to get through some things in an orderly fashion and really get to where we can get some recommendations into get some of this important work started. So all the work that you guys have done on the front end, I know some of those meetings went very late, or at least maybe I just was the one that felt they went late. But you guys have worked really hard, and I think today should go fairly smoothly. Don't be afraid to ask questions, to speak up for what you're thinking. And I think we're going to feel really good about this meeting at the end of the night. So thank you all very much. Oh, one other thing, Lejean will be kind of recording the votes by group for us to make sure. And if we do need to have somebody abstain from voting, we'll communicate that very clearly on the front end. And then also to make sure that everyone had seen that Carol Fall had submitted the proposal that talked about brushing the road to the Bowerman boat ramp. I don't remember the number off the top of my head, that request had been withdrawn because the agency is going to go ahead and take care of that before June 1st. So wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page there. I think
So
that's
on-
it
on-
for my, go ahead.
On your spreadsheet, everybody, that's number 25, road 35N 14Y.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to Tara and to Sarah for kind of stepping up and looking at that issue and realizing that, you know, it was something that the Forest Service could handle, you know, hopefully unless something really nasty happens this spring. So thank you very much, Tara, for just stepping up and resolving that issue.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing it to our attention and you know, making sure we were well aware. So we'll take care of that, which should free up at least a little more money to put some more money into RAC. So thank you. So I think that's all I had for, oh, and there's Sarah. Yay. You're very popular tonight. Welcome. Everyone's happy to see you.
I thought it was 4, so I had tuned in, but then I checked my calendar, it said 4:30 and I was tuned into the wrong meeting. I was like waiting.
Oh, I hate, that happens to me all the time. You're sitting in a virtual room all by yourself. it's like being shoved in the closet or something.
Yeah,
Okay,
So-
I'm
So,
here.
so my apologies, because we originally, when we set these meetings up at our first meeting, we did set the meetings to begin at 4:30. But then when we began meeting here at the library to give us more time to get, you know, to deal with the heavier lifting that we've had to do. And my false impression that if we started at 4, we would get done sooner. We started meeting at 4, but we started ending later. But anyway. so
My fault for being confused, Pat. It's
So,
okay.
That's okay. So are you at home or at work?
I am at work. I have to leave in time to get to a board meeting at 6 and then I'll be back.
So my thought was, we're also trying to find Jeff Morris for the
Oh.
meeting. So he may have also been somebody thinking it's 4:30.
you're muted, Sarah.
You're muted, Sarah.
I'll go see if he's here. I saw him
We
earlier.
sent him a text message.
Oh, all right.
So
That's
I
fine.
just wanted to let you, yeah, in case you knew that he was like out in Southern Trinity or someplace today. And,
Yeah, I didn't check the
Crap.
schedule. I'll look.
okay.
Dylan suspects that Nick will be here.
Hey, Pat.
Okay, and then we're just
So,
waiting
so,
on.
so
Nick, go ahead.
we have a message that Nick likely will be here at 4:30. So somebody else had a question, comment?
Pat, this is Bob. Is
Yeah,
it possible to get you on screen? Before we could see Jill and part of you, now we can see neither.
Oh, it's true. I can do.
oh yeah, she can play with there's these moving cameras, kind of Get Smart looking
There you
thing.
go. Thank you very
So-
much.
Okay, darn.
Nice shirt, Pat. You look, I like the vest. See now. now
Yeah,
we can
I
see
see,
it.
I don't know how I do this. I wear the Forest Service green when I have these Forest Service meetings. But anyway.
Carry on. Don't mind me.
All right, well, that's ironic, Pat, because one of the things I heard is that one of your recommendations to the Forest Service team is, hey, when you're out meeting with the public, you don't always have to wear your pickle suit. That way we know you're one of us. So if you're gonna wear that, you know, I'll just continue to dress casual for our meetings and you can wear the green and the tan. That'll work
Yeah.
good for me. Thank you.
My hat actually says Assistant Turtle Herder because anyway, I thought it was appropriate. Been going a little bit slower. So let's get it going because we do have a quorum. We may get some work done before Sarah has to leave for her first for her little meeting. So kind of some general kind of things from my perspective is that I've sent out a couple of different versions of a spreadsheet that were kind of my straw man trying to, the first one that I sent out that was color coded was kind of based on, you know, the general feel from all of the projects that we had, from all of the collective comments of us as RAC members. And probably in one or more of them, you thought, damn, he didn't go it my way. He put more money or less money or whatever. But it was just my attempt to try to get us thinking collectively about, is there a basket of projects that we could vote on fairly quickly, ones that we all seem to agree on? And then I sent that to everybody individually, and I got a lot of good feedback back. Kind of monkeyed with things some more, and the result of that was the spreadsheet I sent most recently that was not color coded, and that allocates out as a starting point all but a little over $4,000. And then a thought I had with the help of Sarah, Supahan, and Tara, we got together and thought about what would be a strategy for getting through this and getting people home before 8 o'clock tonight. And so we thought of it in terms of a traditional board agenda where there's a consent kind of calendar. You assume everything on that spreadsheet. If we all loved it, if we all thought we could live with it, we could take one vote and we'd be done. But recognizing that some of these probably, some of you don't think they're okay as they're on the spreadsheet. And we would pull those few hopefully off, vote on the bulk of them, and then spend our time on the trickier ones, that I think we all know in one way or another that some of us aren't comfortable with. So that's kind of the strategy that I wanted to take. And in some cases where you see on my spreadsheet, it dropped down, those were ones where they'd asked for 2 years, said they were doing multiple years. And we said, could you live with 1 year? And I kind of went with something more like 1 year's worth of funding. A couple of them, the trail related ones, the Watershed Center and the RCD each had trail related ones that they said, well, it's not really 50-50. I mean, once you start working on a trail, there's a cost effectiveness to finishing the trail. So I may have given more than 50%, but not 100% to some of those, trying to anticipate that. And so that's kind of the approach that I thought we could take. And I see that Amelia has her cartoon hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering how that would be applied with the consent agenda for projects that we aren't eligible to vote for. If we have the packages as a whole, do we need to pull them at that point in time as well?
Yeah, so my thought is that as it stands right now, if somebody in Group A had to recuse themselves for some of them that were on that consent calendar or consent group, if you could recuse yourself from all of them, from that whole package, and we still have enough people to vote, hopefully we would get enough votes to pass it. And in Group C, we only have 3 people here, but at this point, none of those 3 would need to recuse themselves from anything. So it seems like we could take action on a chunk of them. There's another twist that I thought about today, which is the few that we pull and say we want to talk about them, it could be that we give them less or no money as compared to what's on the spreadsheet, which leaves more money on the table. And if we vote on the consent group, and some of those we funded at less than their full ask, we may want to go back and add some funding to those in some form or other also. Hopefully I'm not confusing everybody. So
Pat, can I ask a quick question here? So, well, you had mentioned conflict. Do you not see any conflict with Nicolette from Group C with regards to any WRTC projects?
I do, but he's not on the call yet. And we have 3 people that can vote.
Yeah, okay. So Nick is going to be here shortly, as well as Jeff, it sounds like, so they will join us. But can we go ahead on the agenda and knock out before they get here the approval or corrections to the last meeting's minutes?
Sure,
Get that low hanging fruit out of the way.
sure. So the minutes from the last meeting Lejean sent out when he sent out the agenda. So any changes? You need a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So Carol Fall makes a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting of November 15th. And Nick is joining the meeting now.
Who seconded that?
Nobody yet. Okay, Ross.
I did, I seconded it.
Oh, Forenza.
Forenza.
Forenza did. We'll give it to Forenza. Okay, so any further discussion? If not, this is one that we said is just a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Now we're on to the business. So what's the pleasure of the group? You got to have some pleasure.
So which ones do we want to pull? Is that what you're
Are
asking?
there any that you want to pull for discussion? Forenza has her hand up.
Yes, I would like to pull the Lassick Lupine and the Trinity County Road project. I can't remember which one it is off the top of my
The
head. I
Coffee
think it's
Creek,
project number 5.
the Coffee Creek Road.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Hold on. Go ahead, Sonny.
Mill project,
The-
is that, did they readjust their price?
They didn't readjust their costs, no,
Yeah, they didn't.
no. Okay, so Guy Covington, that's number 8.
I
Okay,
think
any,
those two projects were number 3 and 28. Is that correct?
Correct.
3 and 28, and then number 8.
Okay.
You're working off the computer.
Off of the white one, the one that I sent, the spreadsheet I sent. Go.
Just a clarification, I know you just went over this. So since we're pulling them, we're not going to put them on the consent. We're going to talk about them individually. Gotcha.
And act on them individually.
I'd like to pull off number 12.
Okay, so number 12, West Weaver Community Water District Diversion Improvement, NEPA. Any others? Bob?
Bluebird Mine. And was that both of the road department asks or just the one road department project pulled?
Well, let me get,
The-
Bluebird
other
Mine
one-
is number 17.
The other one's at 0, Bob.
I believe Forenza was only referring to the one county road project. Is that correct, Forenza? Okay, yes.
So I'm still trying to cross-reference the two lists because I just got the new list that's not the yellow list. But the Mark Lancaster temporary emergency road crew, what project is that?
That's
27.
that's number 27, and under the spreadsheet that I sent out, it has 0.
Oh, why is that?
Because I didn't get it from my observations of the earlier meetings, I didn't get a sense that there was much support for it.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, I got only one comment in support for some funding. Okay,
What's the number on Bluebird? Sorry.
17.
Okay, so far we have 3, 28.
No, 3, 8.
328.
Oh, you're doing it in the order.
Yeah.
It's okay. 12, 17. Have I missed any?
8.
Yeah, I got 8.
So from
Okay.
this, yeah, from just going down from the spreadsheet, 3, 8, 12, 17, 28.
Copy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any others?
Anybody, any others?
Did we pull the Lupin issue?
Yes.
Yes. The Lasix Lupin is number 3. That's been pulled. If there aren't any more to pull, then I would entertain a motion to approve all of the rest as presented.
I'll pull
Let's go ahead. And
27.
Number 25 is the one, that's
25.
what we talked about earlier, right?
And it has 0 in listed.
Okay, just wanted to, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
When you say as listed, do you mean with the approved funding as opposed that you have here on the?
The recommended, what it says, approved funding versus requested funding.
So it's really recommended funding.
Yeah, it's really, it's not approved yet.
Right.
Can I pull 27, please?
We need I'm not sure that I've heard a motion yet.
I'll make a motion. Did he make a motion?
No, it sounds like you're making a motion.
Go ahead. Fund the rest of them out.
I guess I just have a discussion item. I don't know before. I want to discuss something before we go to motions, if that's all right. Just
Okay, go ahead.
so there was quite a bit of back and forth when we met last with the presenters. And it seemed like you kind of asked every one of them, was like, can you survive with the smaller funding? And those numbers are reflected with what you've done, right? So we've gotten tentative approval from each of the proposals that they were.
With the 1 year's funding. Yeah. Yes.
That clarifies it for me.
So we have a motion from Sunny, a second from Ross. Any further discussion?
So I'm
Go ahead.
unclear. Did 27 get put on there into the motion at the end?
No.
No, it's still on the motion, on the list and with 0 funding.
Just to be clear, there's just because of the format and being kind of a hybrid between, remote and in person, that it's a little confusing. Like what is your motion for? Because I didn't necessarily hear that. And then when somebody talks in the room, I can't tell who's talking. So it's
Okay.
harder to capture the note. So if we could be like super intentional about this is me talking and we have a motion for this, that would be super helpful, at least to me. It looks like to some others that are working online as well.
Yeah, so the question about the 1 year funding, could they, versus 2 years funding, that was Glenn Hoxie asking that question. And I think Sunny's motion, and to make it really clear, Sunny's motion would be to approve the following proposals on the spreadsheet. This one that LeJean sent, or that I sent out a couple of days ago. And it would be proposals 0, which we actually already funded once before, approved, which was the facilitation. Number 1, the Shasta Trinity Trails Project for $41,500. Pine Cove Marina for $5,000. Three Forks Fire Salvage for $50,000. South Fork Ridge Vista Point Interpretation for $12,000. Trinity County High Priority Noxious Weeds for $60,713.14. Trinity County RCD Native Plant Nursery for $25,000. Community Chipping for $30,000. Weaverville Summer Day Camp for 25,000. Weaverville Community Forest Stewardship, 50,000. Weaverville Community Forest and North Lake Beaver Dam Analog NEPA for 50,000. Trinity County Fire Safe Council for 50,000. Trinity River Cleanup for 20,000. Weaver Basin Trail System Improvements, 60,000. Bluebird Wildlife and,
No, that
sorry,
was
that was off. Hayfork Youth Conservation Crew, 75,000. South Fork Basin Stewardship Community Project, 20,000. Hayfork South Fuel Management Zone, 100,409. Indian Valley Summer Camp, 47,483. West Side Trail Infrastructure Improvements and Community Involvement, 106,722. Forest Ecosystem Health and Resiliency, 50,671. Bowerman Barn Signage, 1,000. Again, the road 35N14Y 0 because it was pulled because the Forest Service is going to do it themselves. Youth and Adult Stewardship Projects, 59,000. Storm and yes,
So Amelia had asked to have 27 pulled out. So as you're going through, can we include that one?
27. Okay, I guess I didn't hear Amelia ask that. Okay. So 27 is not on the list. And the final one, Suzie Q Invasive Removal Project, 29,714.80. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
A second by Ross.
By Ross. If no further discussion, this has to be a roll call vote. And Lejean, are you going to record it as I say off the names?
This is Nick Goulet. I've got a question on this. I'll need to recuse for those particular voting on those particular items that are watershed center projects. So is there a way to sort of vote on the slate while conditionally recusing from just those watershed center sort of projects that would be beneficiaries?
Well, the thought that I had earlier before you joined is that because there are adequate number of people in your group, we need 3 votes. You could just recuse yourself from the vote altogether. And as long as the other 3 in your group are thumbs up on the motion, then it's approved.
Thanks. Sorry, I was late.
That's okay. Okay, so
And
To answer your question, Pat, yes, as you go through, I will track each individual vote for that package.
okay.
and the same thing goes for Group B with Amelia.
And Group B for Amelia, there's only, because Jeff hasn't joined us yet. Same thing.
So just as a matter of formality, so Nick, is it your intent to abstain on this particular vote of this lump group?
Correct.
Yes, and Amelia? There you are, on top of my screen. Is it your
Yes.
intent to abstain from this vote as well, from this lump group?
Correct.
Okay,
You guys work so tightly that if those 2 abstain.
All right.
Doesn't pass, they can't go back and jump in. Should
We
you
could take
perhaps
different kinds of
hold those?
motions.
You can do it again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So Carol Fall,
Aye.
Glenn Hoxie,
Vote in favor.
Pat, I lost your audio.
so Glenn voted yes. If his mic is not working. So say something again, Mike, or Glenn.
Test, test. Oh, there we go. It's on a, I vote in favor.
Forenza,
Aye.
okay. Brian,
Aye.
Morris.
Yes.
Okay, so Group A passes. Jeff Morris, we don't have yet. Arnold,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Randy,
Yes.
Amelia's abstaining. So we have 3 votes in Group B. Group C, Nick is abstaining. Sarah,
Aye.
we don't have Bob Borden. Sonny. And Pat, yes. Okay, so that motion passes.
I couldn't hear Sonny. Was that I take it?
That was
as
a yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. That's good. A great chunk of work done. Now let's we'll just take them up in order. And I'll ask the person who pulled the item to kind of lead off the discussion. So the first one that was pulled was number 3, the Lassix Lupin Conservation Cattle Guards. Forenza.
Hi, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just still not in favor of this project for several reasons because I just feel that if somebody were to take up the allotment that is adjacent to the area where the Lassix lupine is, that all of our contribution would then just be wasteful. And anybody can at any time because that allotment is currently vacant. And the amount that they're asking, if a contractor came to me and I asked them to work me up a quote for 2 cattle guards and charged me, just quoted me $30,000, I would laugh until I fell onto the ground.
So you're saying it's too expensive, too high a price?
Yes.
Okay.
And aside from several other things, but if we need to really get into that, I can expound.
Okay, so other folks. So Randy.
Yes, I kind of agree with Frenza, but I carry it a little farther. They're going to put a fence, which is going to limit other wildlife, actual natural wildlife, from accessing the area. That seems counterproductive, as well as the fact that I really feel that there's cheaper and other alternatives that are much more effective in protecting the area. It just seems like a big waste all the way down the line.
Okay. Bob Morris.
So I understand the comments that were just made. I have some history with this project. They've been trying to do something about the remaining, I don't know the number of plants that exist on the planet. For several years, there was resistance from the then forest supervisor. What was his name, Pat? Tyrone, was it Kelly?
Tyrone Kelly, yeah.
Because it's within the wilderness area. Those of you who know me know I'm big on not infringing on wilderness. But all that being said, I understand it's a little awkward doing it in stages like they're proposing it. The cattle guards with no fence is absurd for the moment, but it will allow them to leverage to be able to get funds to complete the project, which is the fencing. And as far as excluding wildlife, if you've ever seen the site, it's rock. I mean, it's a brutal site. The only thing you would be excluding, I believe, would be deer and cattle. Anything else would still be able to get through a cattle fence that needed it for habitat. And like I said, being as there's whatever it is, it's like a few hundred plants left on the planet. I think it's pretty important to try to protect them. And I heartily encourage doing it, even though it's a staged proposed project. Like I said, I think that if we approve of the small portion that they're asking for, it will leverage and allow them to complete the project. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else?
Amelia has her hand up.
Amelia.
Yeah, so I have done a little bit of back channel questions about this one as well, just to find out some more information. And I too am in support of this project. I the information that I have learned is that these cattle guards will stop the immediate disturbance to some of these elastic lupins, that the cattle is actually moving along the road, and that's how they're accessing the elastic lupin and adjacent to the elastic lupine population. And so that this first action could help decrease the amount of disturbance fairly quickly, and that some additional information that, you know, they plan the second phase. And for all of these Nepa projects to be ready, there's so much analysis that goes into identifying alternate projects, alternate proposed actions. And so I struggle personally with questioning what has been approved by Nepa as this group when this is the alternative that has been chosen and is compliant. And so that's where I stand, that I want to support the Forest Service in their efforts. I want to support the good work that they're doing and not further to hinder their work. Thank
Okay,
you.
anybody? Others? Arnold?
It seems to me that when, was his name McCray, for the proponent was talked to us last time, I remember him saying that that allotment, they had the ability to not rent out the allotment, and he said they would not rent out the allotment to protect the lupin in the wilderness. He said that was, I believe he told us that allotment was being withdrawn.
I have that recollection too, Arnold.
So then why fund cattle guards?
Yeah.
I mean, if they're gonna pull the allotment, I get it, it's countywide, it's open range, and I've been hung up on this one as well, so.
Yeah.
It seems that we have,
Bob, it's Brian Taylor speaking now.
did I interrupt Arnold?
No, but I'm supposed to let people know.
Okay, thank you. It seems that to me, you know, and I'm all for protecting the lupin. It's the only place that grows, you know, in the world. However, you know, $30,000, like Forensic says, to put a couple cattle guards in to protect the cattle from walking up and down the road prior to fencing it. You know, I think they need to look harder at and taking some of that money and putting it in direct protection of the lupin, whether that's in fence or other alternatives. You know, I don't know, but being that it's open range, one will say, well, that's the way the cows walk. Well, that's not necessarily the case. Okay, I've been all over this country, I've been all over the Lassics, been all around that. That is the easiest route. They don't always take the easiest route. They take the route where they're closest to water and it's closest to feed. And yes, it's a barren slope, it's a talus slope, it's a rock, you know, it's a rock outcrop basically, and it's the only thing that realistically that grows there. Does it need protected? Yes, I agree. Does it take $30,000 to protect it? You know, I don't know. I don't support $30,000 going to cattle guards, and that's where I'm at with that.
So Glenn Hoxie.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're on. Yeah, I don't know how much cattle guards cost. If we're down to 130 plants, even if it looks like acquiring the adjacent land might take care of the cattle problem, given that we're down to just a small population, it may be worth doing something that's more permanent. I do notice that they would return any unused funds to the RAC. So if cattle guards really don't cost $30,000, but I think there was some discussion that it might be a little pricey because it's hard to get up there. But I'm in favor of the project. I think it's worth saving the last of these plants.
Yeah, I don't think.
Somebody needs to turn their mic on.
So
Just to move it closer to you, Ross.
maybe she. Closer. Just a whole. Try it now.
I don't think we were given any alternatives. It seems like we could, an acre is 210 feet by 210 feet. You know, maybe we could just fence a couple of the acres that their plants are on and protect them directly. Without knowing everything that was involved in the NEPA, it's kind of hard to say. I don't think they gave us enough information. It seems like obviously that there's other alternatives.
Anybody else? Bob,
It's real easy to armchair quarterback and second guess what might be a better methodology. But the reality is, people who we pay as experts in this have studied it, and this is what they are proposing. So I don't know if it behooves us to try and second guess that.
okay. Any other questions, comments on it? Arnold,
Tara wanted to know that it was Ross talking just before that. In order to get us off the dime at this point, I will make a motion that we approve this project at the requested amount. So we don't have
I
to
would
keep
like
talking
to
about it.
second it.
okay, so
Second.
Arnold makes a motion to approve number 3 at the suggested amount of $30,000. Is there a second?
Bob
Bob
seconded
Morris.
it. Bob seconded.
Bob Morris seconds it.
Here, let me catch up real quick, Pat, sorry.
That's okay.
So we got a motion to approve the Lasix lupine.
Right. Motion by Arnold Whitridge, second by Bob Morris. Okay, any further discussion? If not, we'll do the roll call vote. I'll read the names off and LaJean will be keeping track. So Carol Fall,
Aye.
Glenn Hoxie, Forenza Penny,
No.
Brian Taylor.
I'm sorry to all that. What was that second vote? I'm sorry.
That was me and it's I. Glenn says I.
I'm sorry, it was Carol and then,
See,
Look, yeah, look at Group A, the
Glenn says
roster.
I. I'm doing thumbs up in here too, so.
the roster that you gave us, LaJean.
yep, and Glenn was a yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's an issue with my mic more than anything else.
No, I got
And-
too many documents on my computer.
Was a no.
Okay,
Brian Taylor
No.
and Bob Morris.
Yes.
Yes. So that's 3 yes votes in Group A, which makes it past Group A. Group B, I see that we have Mr. Jeff Morris has joined us. Hey, Jeff. So your vote on this one.
This is the last of Lupin guards?
This is the Lassick Lupin one.
No.
Okay, so Jeff is a no. Arnold.
Yes.
Arnold is a yes. Ross.
Ross is a no.
Ross is a no. Randy? No. The no. Amelia?
Yeah,
Fails with Group B because there are only 2 votes. So I'm gonna, just for the record, get Group C's votes also.
Pat, can
So
we use the people that would normally have abstained? Are you counting their votes for this specific one?
yeah, they don't need to abstain.
Okay, thanks.
So Nick,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes,
Sonny. Pat, yes, but the motion still fails. And the motion was to fund it at that amount of $30,000.
So they could always reapply and provide more information.
They could reapply in the next round with more information, refined numbers, better information on alternatives, that sort of thing, certainly. Okay. So the next one up is the Guy Covington Fuels Reduction Project. Sonny, you pulled that one. So let you kind of start that discussion.
Well, the reason that I wanted to vote was because I don't, if they haven't approached the Forest Service for some funding on, to help out on that there, SBI, then I don't.
Could we get him a mic?
So Sonny, you're not coming up on the mic.
Well, now can you hear me?
Is he on?
Not on, is it? Going?
no, it needs to get closer.
Which is, it's not on. Not on.
Tell me your number again.
7.
Number 7. On now?
It's on according to this system. Why don't you use the wireless one here?
This note here,
Try to.
this note. That's on. The reason I would pulled it was because if they haven't approached the Forest Service for some funding on that there and SPI for some funding on that, I don't see them us funding that there and them doing a project that the Forest Service and SPI would benefit from without putting any money in on it. So unless that there happens, I'm against it.
So I would say that it doesn't involve any SPI land.
Don't.
No,
I
it's
thought
all,
it was going up along the highway there.
it's all just Forest Service land.
Oh, okay. Well,
And it's,
even if it's just all Forest Service land, then the Forest Service should kick in a little bit on that there too.
Well, I mean, essentially the Forest Service would be paying for it, right? Because the Forest Service is allocating.
this is Forest
the
Service money. True.
Say what?
So this pot of money ultimately is Forest Service money.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. All right, well, if in that case, then I'll change my vote to yes on it.
But Randy, you have,
My problem with this is basically their cost per acre. As we talked about when they initially were here, excluding the highway and power lines and et cetera, it's less than what they issue there. And we have 2 other projects that we've approved that the cost per acre is $1,000. Another one that's less. This is $6,000 per acre, including the highway. I really have a problem with their cost. If you drive by and look at it, there's a lot of, I guess you could say, old growth, large trees. There's a bunch of stuff underneath it. But the amount of clearing itself seems to be minimal. Smaller, up to 6-inch diameter stuff, not a lot of that. It just seems to be an expensive price per acre.
Carol Fall.
Yeah, so I did get more clarification on this project. So there are areas where Caltrans has done some work, but they only did 50 feet from the highway. And this CE is 100 feet from the highway. So then that means they have to go much further away from the highway. It means they're going to be essentially cutting and then dragging a lot of stuff to the chipper. So that's one of the reasons the cost is much higher. And then there are areas where they haven't done any work at all, particularly right at the intersection of Guy Covington and Highway 3. It's really thick. And they have the same issue where the further you get from the highway, when you're, hundreds of feet away from the highway, because it's multiple acres, they either have to cut it and pile it and come back later and burn it, or they have to drag it to the chipper. There's areas that are really steep. We went and kind of slid up and down some banks to where, looking at where they were going to essentially have to go up 20 feet just to get to the point where, because the roads are in cut banks, just to get to the point where they could get in with the chainsaw, and then there's no way they can get the chipper in. So they're gonna have to drag stuff. So I don't know how much it's gonna actually cost, but I think if we, try to make sure they keep accurate records and return whatever they don't spend, which is what they've said they would do, that, it's a good project.
Anybody else?
Pat, I was just wondering, are proponents allowed to speak during this time or only members of the RAC?
I've kind of left it to members of the RAC.
Okay. I get for the Guy Covington project, it's in an area that could be considered a bottleneck as far as fuel capacity when people are trying to evacuate. And so I think treating this landscape would be essential to help prioritize evacuation for not only the residents along State Route 3, but also the residents of Guy Covington Mill Road Street, themselves. Thank you.
Okay. So anybody, Carol?
Yeah, I just want to, sorry, I should have said that earlier. I mean, this has been a high priority project for the volunteer fire department for years. Because of the fires that have occurred on Bowerman and in the campgrounds and right at that intersection that have kind of given me a heart attack when it comes to trying to make sure people can get out of there without driving through a tunnel of fire. So that's why this project as a whole has been, why the Forest Service did the NEPA, so that they could come back and then try to find funding to get it done.
Okay. Bob Morris.
So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get up to look at this site I wanted to. I originally felt the cost was amazing. Chris from RCD, I believe, added another $1,000 per acre to the 6,000, calling it $7,000 per acre, and seemed fine with that. It seemed outrageous to me, but here's my but. The fact that the Trinity Center Volunteer Assistant Fire Chief is in favor of it and has been pushing for this for several years that I'm aware of. And because the money's available, for those reasons, I would vote yes on it at this time.
Okay, anybody else? This would be a good time for a motion if someone wants to make a motion.
Well, then this is Carol speaking, and I will move that we approve item number 8 at the $75,000 level.
I second it.
So Ross Molyneux makes the second. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, so we'll on to the roll call. So right off the bat, Carol Fall.
Aye.
Aye. Forenza Penny.
Aye.
Brian Taylor.
Aye.
Bob Morris.
Yes.
Okay, so it passes in Group A. Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Arnold Whitridge.
Yes.
Ross Molyneux.
Yes.
Randy Spencer.
Yes.
Amelia, you'll need to recuse yourself on this one because it's a RCD project.
Yes, I abstain. Thank you.
Yep. Nick Gillette,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
Sonny,
Yes.
Pat Frost, yes. So it passes. The next one up is number 12, the West Weaver Community Water District Diversion Improvement NEPA. And Arnold pulled that one for discussion, so.
So this project prepares the way to put a pipe in the West Weaver ditch to eliminate seepage. And there's a lot of seepage going on. And much of there would be saved water, which would then be allowed to flow down the ditch to the Moonlee Ditch Association users, including the cemetery and the Young Family Ranch. In my mind, it's a reasonable project if I can be certain that more water would it would result in more water in West Weaver Creek. And I cannot tell that. I think it's just as likely that less water would be flowing in West Weaver Creek. A big way is that this would happen is that the large amount of seepage in a situation that's not ideal becomes groundwater and gets back into the creek. It moves in the soil as Caltrans had to build an expensive draining system to deal with the movement, and it ends up back in the creek. If we if we cut off that supply to the creek, we either need to be certain that the diversion that going into the ditch will be lowered so that to counterbalance it, or the creek just gets less. I don't see anything built in to the proposal that would ask the diverter to divert less. So I think the proposal is out in front of itself. I think I am willing to fund, I would be willing to fund a related project, what I think would be a phase 1 project or a necessary preliminary to figure out the groundwater question. How much is now the creek if we built this? Would the diverter divert less or keep diverting the same and just feeding just in order to feed the Moonlee Ditch Association? If we're just improving the circumstances of the Moonlee Ditch Association and the CSD, it's great for them. In my mind, it's not an appropriate use of RAC funds. It doesn't benefit federal lands. It benefits cemetery and the CSD, but not federal lands. So I'm hoping that we don't approve number 12 as submitted at this time. In its place, I'd be happy to consider, discuss, approve the slightly different project that I described. I think it would be easiest if we just save out some money when we're done and agree to give the RCD a couple of months to develop such a proposal, or they could come back next year. But that's how I'm feeling. I'm not willing to approve it now. The NEPA is to facilitate the project that I don't know if we want to do. I don't know if we want it to happen. So I can't see approving this right now. Thank you.
Arnold, who else? Anybody other questions? Ross.
You know, this water is going to
Make sure, can we hear Ross okay?
This water is being diverted right now, and what's not being diverted, it just flows someplace else, you know. Water is going to become much more valuable in the future than it is right now. And just because the cemetery or the Moonlee Ranch don't want to kick any money in, because I think they're being short-sighted. And just because they are, I don't think we should be short-sighted. You know, they're gobbling up water rights all over every state. You know, in some states, they say that the water that comes off your roof and flows down your gutters belongs to the state and not you. I think we need to fix this diversion and get it going and keep that water, because it's going to support another ecology. It flows out and flows down the hill, and they'll say, "Oh, there's a frog or something that it supports," and we're going to lose it. And we're going to lose it, you know, just because we're being short-sighted. And yeah, I think we should approve this project.
Randy.
I'm having a bit of a problem because I don't think we have the information we need. We aren't being told how much water is available, how much Weaverville's taking. I was told that basically the Moonlee Ditch has the right to all of it. So the creek's not going to get any water. If there's more water passing through, the Moonlee Ditch is going to take it. I think we need to know how much water is both these agencies are allowed to take. I mean, improving the ditch is a plus for everybody, but we're supposed to be helping the creek. And if improving the ditch just means there's more water taken, not leaking down to the creek or anything else, we're kind of defeating what we want to try and do as far as making the forest better.
Bob? As a comment?
Bob.
So it's a little late in the game. I have some specific questions. I'm a builder. I like plans. I've not been able to see any plans. A really basic question I've had conceptually is, so the lower part of the ditch is encased in a pipe. That's typically a good thing because there's less leakage. I've never heard, is the end of the pipe going to be capped or not? A really basic question. Or will what's not used flow down by the Jaws house out of the West Weaver drainage as it is now? Amelia's shaking her head no, even though it's half buried in her turtleneck there. The fact that the Community Services District is not actively behind this project is irksome to me. There's just lots of small red flags for me in this that makes it hard to support at this time. Possibly in the future, possibly in the near future, but not at this time for me, I don't believe.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Sarah?
What if we tabled this one to get some more information? Is that in our purview to table something rather than to vote yes or no?
I think that's kind of what Arnold was suggesting as part of his, give him a couple more months. You know, if we, and I asked, but I don't recall the answer that I asked to Tara. You know, if we don't allocate 100% of our $1.25 million, you know, tonight, and we meet again, say in January or February, could some of these that were tabled, if they were tabled for them today, could they come with refined information and let us consider them then? And I think that we can do that.
A new proposal, though, essentially.
LaJean's not jumping on. So I think it depends. If we take new proposals, we have to take new proposals. I would think that we can't just take, we can ask for, I would think that we can ask for additional information related to a proposal we've already received. And we're not forced to, I'll get you, we'll call Nick in a second. We're not forced to allocate every penny that we have by any means. So, and then if the additional information you were to receive didn't meet your expectations, I would think that then you could allocate the additional funds that were available to one of the other ones are already approved. But so I think you have to be careful. If you say we're going to take new proposals on, then you have to open the door. That would be my take on it. Nick, did you have something to add?
Yeah, so something that Kelly had mentioned, I think, in our prior discussion around this proposal was the idea that the users, of which there are only a couple, the cemetery and Young Family Ranch, you know, might be willing to entertain, or were already entertaining the idea of a forbearance agreement, basically like a guarantee that they would leave the water, that additional water in the creek during critical times for the fishery. And to me, that seems like it sort of secures what Arnold and maybe Glenn was asking about, which is, you know, how do we guarantee we get more water in the creek for this? So I don't know if that's something that's actually feasible in the time frame, because that's something you could essentially do without changing the proposal. You know, if you could come back with those two primary users, again, it maybe wouldn't be like the full legal instrument of a forbearance agreement, but it could be some sort of statement of intent, you know, of these parties that we could trust that says, hey, you know, our intention is not to take that water. Yeah, we want to water in the spring. We want to water in early summer, but we're going to make sure that that water does make it to the creek and does provide a fishery benefit during that critical time of year. And maybe that could persuade the RAC without, again, coming with an entirely new proposal.
Yeah, I guess from Sarah's question, I think she was suggesting more of an amending the existing one with additional information. So I think that's consistent with what Tara was describing, if that were the path we wanted to take.
And I don't know that that's at all possible, but it was alluded to by Kelly, I think, when he was presenting the proposal prior, because this issue the same issue came up. I mean, Arnold brought up the same issue, and we got sort of some idea that yes, the water was going to end up in the creek, but that's really the only mechanism that would assure that for us.
Amelia has her hand up.
So Amelia, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and I don't know if I'm allowed, if you want to get on to this right now, or if we want to just come back, I'm fine either way. So again, this project is 3 phases. So this is 1 phase of the project. The Moonley Dish and the YFR are contributing to their part of it. They're working with NRCS to do a capped pipeline. Based on the everything, the Weaverville Community Service District are the ones that own the water right, and that's 3 CFS. That's 3 cubic feet per second is what their water right is. The Moonley Dish Association has the right to access, and so that means water of that 3 CFS that the Weaverville Community Service District is not using. They're not approved in excess to that 3 CFS. But Nick, back to your forbearance agreement, I will be honest, I don't know that that actually will be a thing, because the cemetery wants the water to use in the summer. And in all honesty, they don't have the storage capacity to make that happen. So I will be completely honest that I don't know that that's an option.
So
yeah,
Tara,
just thank you for your time and your comments. I appreciate the feedback.
go ahead, Tara.
I think that, you know, the big picture is without the assurance that the water, that there will be more water going into the creek, you know, we can't really spend RAC money to improve a water system for some private users. So big picture, you know, backing up to the 30,000 foot level is, you know, what can we spend this RAC money on? And without that assurances that Arnold's brought up, you know, we need to make sure we're putting more water into the creek to the benefit of the fisheries and public lands. I think you're kind of at a critical juncture here that we can't really, I'm not sure that the committee can make a decision on this one, but that's just my take listening to the questions that have been asked and the lack of any assurances that we won't spend RAC dollars to just improve somebody else's water flow on private property. I get that there's a limit of 3 cubic feet. I think that's what you said, 3 CFS, but those are some of my concerns. Big picture is that we have no assurances that we're going to benefit put more water in the creek. So Jeff has his hand up.
Yeah, Jeff Morris.
Based on all that commentary, I would just say that, you know, we should either deny the proposal or make the offer to the proponents to come back and demonstrate how this is going to shift more water to the creek. And that would maybe be up to the proponents. So we could somehow structure an emotion to in that way.
Bob Morris.
It keeps recurring in this conversation. I would be more comfortable specifying which creek when we say returning water to the creek. The creek of origin is West Weaver, not Sydney Gulch at the Joss House.
Mhm.
That's true. Sarah.
So it seems like there's a lot of questions, and I hope somebody captured all of those so that we can ask them to bring those answers back. But I'll just make a motion to table it at this point. Till we
Okay,
get more
so
information.
Sarah has made a motion to table number 12, and Forenza has seconded that. So any further discussion? Okay, so we'll do the roll call. I'm gonna mix it up this time. We're gonna start with Nick Gillette. Nick.
That's a vote of yay to table. Is that the right action here?
Yes.
Okay, and can I a question? Okay, sorry, I'll just leave it.
Sarah Supahan.
Yes to table.
Sunny.
Yes to table.
Pat Frost, yes. Table. Amelia, well, you have to abstain. Randy.
Yes, the table.
Ross.
Yes, the table.
Arnold.
Yes.
Jeff.
Yes.
Bob Morris.
Yes.
Brian.
Yes.
Forenza. Glenn,
Yes.
Carol.
No, I think they should start all over again. So no.
Okay. Okay, so the motion passed to table this for further discussion down the road. So the next one up is number 17, the Bluebird Wildlife Enhancement Project. And Bob Morris pulled this one.
So that means you'd like me to speak to it, I assume, Pat?
Yeah, that's the
Uh,
idea. Sorry.
From the get-go, I have tremendous issues with this project, and it has to do with what's historically been done in the name of restoration at the site, which maybe it's not fair to judge current proposed actions on, but after speaking with locals who are very concerned about environmental issues in that area, the purpose of the project was to supply Western pond turtle summer habitat in creating this, what I call a torn up landscape. It's a series undulating pools, I guess would be a nicer way to say it, in tailings. Tailings pretty notoriously do not hold water because they're gravel and sand. So anyway, the locals have told me, to the best of their knowledge, there is no water in the summertime in these pools. So the benefit to turtles has been a failure, it appears to me. Unfortunately, with all the work that's been done there, equipment work to create this, the shape of the land, now there's a large, extensive star thistle, non-native invasive population that I'm a firm believer in treating these manually wherever they exist. And then planting the trees that are proposed with irrigation systems for a couple of years to get them up and going. Shade from trees would also lessen the success of star thistle, which the seeds get in the creek and go downstream. So I have real mixed feelings. I think it's a failure to date on site. Good money after bad is a term that comes to my mind. There's always a but would it be better off 5 years from now if this project were to go forward than if it were not to? And so I'm pretty conflicted in this, and I was just hoping to hear discussion from other people before I made a decision, but I've been conflicted from the get-go and remain so.
Anybody else? Anybody else visit the site? Randy?
I'm kind of in agreement. I actually went up there and looked at it because I wanted to see an area that 10,000 people, 5 acres worth lived on. That's more people that are in Weaverville, Junction City, Douglas City, et cetera. Being the person in this group that's both a archaeologist and historian, I looked at it from that side. I have done historical reports, archaeological reports, and my feeling is basically what was there, besides a pile of rocks and a few other things, doesn't represent anything. Most of the site's been pretty well worked over one way or the other. I have a really hard time with what they're trying to do. Preserve. Anybody wants to take a look at the headwaters of Coffee Creek or the lake? Piles of rocks don't grow things, no matter how hard you try. And I don't see that their proposal is going to lead to anything. They've been working at this now since, 97 or something, and it still doesn't show much progress. It just, like he says, it doesn't seem to be a good waste of money.
Anybody else? I haven't really added my comments to any of these so far, and I do with the Bluebird because my recollection, and Arnold, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've seen earlier phases of this, I think, before the RAC in days gone by. And I can't remember. I know we asked Lucetta Sims from the Forest Service how earlier phases went, and I don't really remember the answer. I think it might have been some of it didn't get done. They were supposed to do some prescribed fire that they were unable to do for some reason, probably because of the fire season. And like Bob, I'm greatly conflicted by it. I mean, you know, we've long struggled with how to control the invasives without the use of chemicals, doing it manually. And I think this is a great step in trying to do that. But I also worry about whether or not you're actually going to get trees to grow on the site. I haven't been to the site, so I mean, you're gonna have to irrigate them for forever, you know, and I had a conversation recently with the landowner up in the headwaters of Coffee Creek that owns where the creek goes underground. And years ago, he had gotten with me and wanted to get grant funding to reforest it all. And the answer was, you just can't do it. So I'm pretty conflicted on this one too.
Yeah, I'm conflicted on it too. I talked to some people that live up Canyon Creek, and they don't seem to be passionately desiring it to go on. I am interested in the comment here about using AM 120 mycorrhizal inoculant. Is that going to address the fact that, you know, things don't grow in rocks? I have never heard of this. I mean, I'm reading a lot about how mycorrhizal stuff is real important. Does anybody know any studies that it's effective?
Beyond my skill set. Yeah.
At this point, you think? I look around the room with other parsers. No. Okay. So I'm conflicted.
Well, with the rock and the trees question, yes, the RCD has been successful in growing trees on rock bars. But other than that, I won't comment.
Okay. So what's the pleasure of the RAC?
I call for a motion to fund this project as proposed.
So Glenn Hoxie is making a motion to approve this project as suggested at the $31,421 amount, right?
Yes.
Have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
So Sonny Hayward seconds the motion. So any further discussion? If not, we go to roll call time. Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry. Oh, Jeff Morris has left the meeting. But I think that's okay. We still have a quorum. Thanks. So Carol Fall,
No.
Glenn Hoxie,
No. No.
Glenn Hoxie, a no. Forenza,
Yes.
yes, okay. Brian Taylor,
No vote.
no vote. So we have 3 no votes in Group A, which means that it can't pass, but for the record, we'll go through everybody else. Bob Morris,
I'll abstain just due to confliction, but did Glenn move for this and then vote no? Is that correct?
yes, he moved for the purposes of having the motion happen.
Okay, thank you.
Here. Arnold.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Randy.
No.
Ilya has to abstain. Sonny.
No.
No. Sarah.
I think I have to abstain too. I don't feel like I have good information either way.
Okay, Nick
Oh, yes.
and Pat, yeah, I'd vote yes. But the motion fails because of the voting Group A.
Dylan is back, so you're aware.
What's that?
Dylan is back.
Oh, okay. Okay, so our next one up is storm and hazard response for county roads impacted by wildfire. I didn't write down who. Oh, Amelia pulled this one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Amelia.
I don't agree with the full amount of the request. However, I do think that there is some value in looking at preventing damage to our roads rather than continuing to operate on an emergency response plan. And so my thought is that even like, maybe to fund this at a lower rate, and that even though they won't be using it, they may not get the funds quickly enough to use it this year, that if we again have wildfires next year and have a heavy rainfall, that they could use some of those funds to have some preventive actions in the following year. So maybe I would look at this one to approve at a lesser amount, but delay the implementation of this. I like the concept. I like the preventative nature of it. I just don't agree with the full amount. And the request was to look at fires from this year, and I just don't know that we're going to have that money allocated in time for that to actually work. So maybe a lesser amount, or again, ask for a amended proposal in the future, or look at encourage them to reapply during the next round.
So Amelia, just for my sake, so when you say amended proposal, are you thinking the same approach we took on the West Weaver diversion, tabling it until later in the year? Or
that sounds good.
Reapplying. Okay, that sounds good. And if you were to do table it, okay. Sarah.
So my feelings are knowing that the secure rural schools or forest reserve funds, whatever you want to call it, are approved for the next 3 years at the 2017 level, which is a fairly significant amount of money, and that county roads will be getting a portion of that money. I'd rather use our funds for other things.
And I think if I did my math right, the county road department will get something in the neighborhood of $1 million, I think, for the next 3 years from secure rural schools. And the schools get a similar amount, right? I think so. Randy.
I'm pretty much against this. It seems to me that the county Public Works is going to be making an agreement with an outside agency that we're going to be funding. If the road department feels that they need this sort of backup, it seems to me that they should be able to go out there and do it themselves. I just, I don't see it advantageous to the forest. I mean, Coffee Creek Road right now is a disaster. I've been all the way to the end of it. It's getting worse. And the FEMA will come along and support money for that. I've been up the roads more than just that lately. And it just seems that the county, this is a county responsibility, not ours.
Okay, anybody else? Ross.
Logistically, I just don't feel it's going to work. You're going to try to keep a local backhoe operator, contractor, and in standby. You know, something happens to a county road, or you're going to have to hire a bigger group from outside the county. How are they going to get here? Where are they going to stay? The whole thing logistically doesn't work yet. It's a great idea in a bigger place, you know, but here it's not going to work.
Anybody else? Sarah.
I'd like to make a motion to leave it as is. So that's number 27, to leave it with no funding.
Okay, so we have a motion from Sarah to leave it as is with no funding.
Second.
Carol Fall seconds the motion. So on to the roll call. Nick Gillette. Supporting a motion to not fund it.
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
Sunny.
I vote to leave it with it.
Zero, okay.
Yep.
Pat Frost, I agree with the motion also, leave it at 0. Amelia,
No,
Randy,
No.
Ross,
No, 0.
Arnold.
So that's a yes. then.
Pat, real
Yes
quick,
means zero, right?
Just,
Yes
wait a-
means 0.
yeah, so Ross actually meant yes, correct?
Okay,
Yeah.
so was it the same for Amelia and Randy? Was
Yeah.
a, was a, was
No,
there
yeah.
no or yeses?
No, Amelia was a no vote. She's against the motion. Ross
Yes.
was for the motion.
And what about Randy, just to confirm?
Randy is no fund.
So he's
So
a yes
yes
vote.
vote. That's a yes vote. Thank you.
We missed Arnold.
Yes.
Jeff,
Jeff's gone.
gone. Bob,
Yes, no funding.
Brian,
Yes.
Forenza,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes to the motion.
Carol Fall.
Yes.
Okay, so the only no vote was Amelia. Okay, so
the
our
motion
last,
carried.
go ahead, what was that, LeJean?
So just for clarification, the motion carries. We will not be funding proposal number 27.
Correct.
And we're not holding on to proposal 27 for future consideration.
We're not doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 28, Coffee Creek Narrow Section Improvement Project. Forenza pulled that. So you get to start us off, Forenza.
Okay, well, like Arnold expressed during our last meeting, I'm also not in favor of using these funds to, on county roads. And then this particular place, according to several other people on the board, is not going to be much use because it's not only is it not at the beginning of the road where you would actually find some use of it, it's somewhere off in the middle of it. It's also just an area that is just falling down the mountain anyways. And I'm not sure, at our last meeting, the proponent was not able to give a very thorough answer to what they would do for it in the first place. So I'm happy to start discussing that.
Well, thank you, Forenza. Okay, anybody else? Randy, who knows this really well.
I'm very much against this. Having just recently gone up Coffee Creek Road, I would like to point out that there's an area that the Forest Service flagged heavily as a danger spot, and this is not it. Also, the federal government spent a lot of money recently building brand new concrete bridges on Coffee Creek Road, which are lane-and-a-half bridges. Just seems that the county wants a 2-lane road that's bottlenecked on bridges. It just seems like a major waste of money when the whole road, starting at roughly mile marker 5, needs to be made wider, period, some turnouts, whatnot. It just, it's got the cart waiting in front of the horse.
Anybody else?
just for clarification, they were asking for planning money for this, right? Not for implementation? Or the 65 is for the planning?
Right.
5 that I suggested in my spreadsheet was for the planning design. Their original ask was 195,000, which was to include implementation.
Okay.
But Bob Morris.
So I had mixed feelings about this early on, had a discussion with Pat about Title I funding. And the number you just mentioned, Pat, $1 million to the road department. I remember a way bigger number than that in our discussion. Wasn't that pot like 27 million or something?
No. No, it was a much bigger number in the early days of secure rule schools, but I looked up on online what it would be. It'd be set at the funding levels that the secure rule schools was getting in 2017, and that's roughly $4 million for Trinity County. 85% of the $4 million goes to roads and schools. 15% goes to Title II and Title III. So if my math was right, and it's not guaranteed, I came up with somewhere around $1 million for roads and $1 million for schools.
So thank you. But that being said, I still feel with the amount of conflict I hear over this project that it seems more appropriate that perhaps the road department use their Title I RAC funding for this project instead of Title II RAC funding.
Sarah.
I'm going to make a motion to, let's see, are we leaving it to not fund the project, just to move us along?
So we have a motion from Sarah. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Randy makes a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. We'll do a roll call vote. Carol, so the motion is to not fund number 28. Carol Fall.
No.
Glenn Hoxie.
Yes.
Forenza Penny.
Yes.
Brian Taylor.
Yes.
Bob Morris.
Yes, not fund it.
Yes to not fund it. Okay. Jeff is still not back. Arnold.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Randy.
Yes.
Amelia.
No.
Okay, so it has gotten enough votes in A and B. Time for Group C. Nick.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes to not funding.
Sunny.
Yes, for not funding.
Pat. No, but it still passes. So the motion passed to not fund the Coffee Creek Narrow Section Improvement Project. And I'm happy to tell you that that's the last of the projects that we needed to take up, and it's only 5:40, but don't leave yet. So because of our votes in on the projects that were pulled from the consent, we have left a chunk of change on the table.
$130,000, $130,787.
And that does not include
Tabling,
the West Weaver diversion tabling.
right.
So $137,000 above and beyond what we have funded so far. So we can save that and use it, you add it to the pot next year. We could go back. We could look at the projects that we underfunded, people that had asked for more than we offered or than we approved in the consent agenda. And I'll tell you what we're underfunded by, if somebody will add them up, or maybe someone is working on that.
Hold on one second before we go any further. I just want to make sure that we're all tracking the right number, so that just to make sure we're on the same page. So we had $30,000 from item number 3, correct?
Correct.
That's available now.
Yes.
Okay. And then we had 12, item 12, that one's tabled, right? So we're
So
saving that.
so we're just setting that aside, not counting that one way or the other.
Perfect, okay. And then we had the 31,421 from 17,
Correct.
and then 65,000 from number 28.
Correct.
And that's the
Plus-
money we're working off of now?
plus the $4,366 that wasn't originally allocated on the spreadsheet.
At the top of the
Copy.
spreadsheet.
Yep, okay. That, just want to make sure we're all,
Yeah.
that I'm tracking and that I don't want to get all excited and then allocate money that I didn't have or
No.
that I did bad math on.
So-
No,
Just a clarification, from my table, I'm seeing that we have 180,000 remaining to be spent. Just-
But you subtract the 50,000 that we set
Yep.
aside for the West
Yep.
Weaver
Okay,
diversion.
no, I didn't set that aside. Okay.
yeah, you got to set that one aside because that could get spent. Sarah,
So I'm gonna have to leave, but my suggestion, and I probably can't make a motion because I'll be gone to vote on it, but my suggestion is just to move it into next year's funding, and we have a lot more time next year to go through the proposal process and approval, since we'll be able to start, right away in the new year rather than doing it at the end of the year. So we'd have more time to consider and get more input on projects or funding these further if we want them to reapply.
okay, Carol.
I think we just need assurances from the Forest Service that that money's not going to go back to the Treasury, that we will have that money available to allocate in the future,
In the near future,
near future. Well, even if it takes us a little while.
but I mean, not 5 years from now.
Right.
So for clarity, which is not very clear to be sure, the only guideline we've been given is September 30th. They want us to spend all the money that's currently in the pot by September 30th, 2023.
So that means it has to go
Have
to
it
grants
obligated.
and agreements and get spent.
To be obligated in an agreement or a contract or some instrument.
Yeah,
So we
not to
can't
be
wait very
expended,
long.
not to be expended, just to be obligated
Oh,
by September 2023 in a legal instrument.
Correct. Now, it does butt up against historic precedent, which was that RAC funds don't traditionally go back to the Treasury. So, but this is the guidance they're giving. So it might change, but I don't know how much you want to gamble with that.
Do we still have a quorum or do we no longer have a quorum?
Sarah just left.
We still have a quorum. In Group C, we still have myself, Sonny, and Nick. And we still have 4 members in Group B and 5 members in Group A.
Okay.
Back to the question of the 130,000, this is Glenn. So by 2023, we will also have the future funding that's been promised down the line, right? So it'll be
Further out. I did some just quick numbers, which are probably inaccurate on projects that we funded for less than they asked. And I come up with that ask, that gap is around $54,000.
No, it's way more.
Is it way more?
Yeah.
Okay, so I missed some then.
So
Oh,
Pat, this is Arnold talking. It
Yeah.
seems like the whole gap is, doesn't remove any work that would be done this year. It's all created by reducing them from next year's work, their second year of work. So
Correct.
I don't see any harm in doing as Sarah suggested and just carrying it over and letting them apply again.
Okay, I'm cool with that. So for Lejean and Tara, would you like a motion to that effect? Just to
Hold on,
cover?
can I say something?
I'm just asking them a question if that's what they would like.
Yeah, if that's it, for me, if that's the decision of the group, and I would quantify it to say that's the decision of the group right now. If we get additional information that, you may want to take up in the spring to, or address the projects we've already agreed to, we could take that up later, but I think yes, if you're going to say we want to, award what we've awarded so far, leaving this $130,000 on the books for now, that doesn't commit you to when you're going to take it up, and it doesn't close any doors as far as adding some allocation to some of those other agreements in the future. So I think that might be a wise thing to do.
Oh, okay. Amelia.
To those of you who may not be implementing some of these, no offense, but grants and agreements is broken. So even if we want to allocate some of these fundings, it may be a big burden for the organizations that are implementing these projects down the line. And the same thing, if we're going to fund the same project for multiple years, why not do it in one contract rather than having to do a modification, rather than having to jump through more hoops, rather than having to generate a new application. And so you're adding burden to the programs that will be implementing these projects. My suggestion would be to fund some of our 2++ projects in full, such as the Hay Fork Youth Conservation Crew, and maybe pick a couple others. That's my recommendation.
Pat.
Carol Fall.
So I agree with Amelia, but I have a concern that that Nick would have to abstain in category C. So we wouldn't have enough votes to fund anything from the Watershed Center.
That's true. Unless I keep you here until Sarah gets back. Till Christmas. Go ahead, Arnold.
It seemed like what Tara was getting at is if we come back anyway in a couple of months, within a couple of months, to consider the West Weaver project again, at that time, assuming we have a quorum, we could plug the money in. It seems like that's what Tara said, and that's what it's not a big deal. We could do it.
And yeah, and as broken as grants and agreements are, as described by Amelia and others have told me, you probably wouldn't have your agreement yet for something that we approved today, because everybody's on use it or lose it leave until the new year pretty much. And then, it takes a while to kind of get things going. In fact, just to give an example, I'm assuming, Lejean, that the agreement that you put into grants and agreement to fund the RCD to help do the coordination has still not been approved.
It's still working its way.
So
that was in July.
Oh, Pat, that hurt right there. That was very visual.
But I'm wearing the colors. I get to say it.
Yes, you're not wrong. So to go back to what Arnold was saying and what you were all saying is, yes, I think that we would still have some time. It would still be making its way through grants and agreements. And I think, unless I'm wrong, Lejean, once we have an agreement in place, adding additional money to it is not as difficult as reinventing the wheel. So if something managed to go through and then the RAC said, you know what, we want to put another $20,000 into this agreement, that's not as difficult as starting from square one again.
That's
Is that correct? Okay.
Correct.
So I think you guys have done yeoman work so far. So maybe just being timely and picking up the tabled proposal and then looking at those additional funds in, what are we talking then, January or February, I guess? Maybe a wise course of action, but I'd leave it to you guys to vote on that.
Okay, and maybe even hopefully in January and February timeframe, these meetings could actually be live with the Forest Service. So I would entertain a motion, I guess, maybe to continue those unobligated funds to a meeting in the new year, early in the new year.
It's
So
a
move.
So we got a motion from Brian.
I'll second.
Carol Falls second. Any further discussion?
Is there a need to come up with a more specific date? I mean, these meetings are already planned, right? I mean, on the calendar.
Lejon, have we scheduled our January and February meetings, second and fourth Thursdays or Mondays?
Yeah, yes.
So depending on whether, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
go ahead, Arnold.
it seems like it would work fine with no motion at all. I mean, we've done what we've done. There's some left over. If we want to use it later, we can use it later.
Yeah, this is Carol. I just think it's good for the record that we get on the record that we want to keep that money. We still plan on spending it. Because if we don't make a motion, you know, it could be said that, okay, they just left that money on the table and they didn't need it. So I want to make it clear.
But this is Glenn, we can't vote on it. We don't have quorum, right?
We do.
Oh, we do.
We don't have a quorum if Nick has to, or Amelia has to, or Nick has to recuse himself, but he doesn't on this. Okay, okay, Ross.
I gotta make. You folks must have led a wonderful life. You're so trusting. I'm for spending all the money we've got right now. And then if we get more, we'll spend that too. I've been a contractor all my life. I'm not so trusting. Spend the money.
Well, I've been involved. I agree with you on, you know, not trusting sometimes, but this is a program and process that I've been involved in with Arnold since 2001. And I believe part of the money that we're spending now was carried over from 2015 or 16. And Lejon is saying yes. Carol.
And
I think $4,100 from 2014 still.
So
And I agree with Ross too. I'd rather spend all the money, but I'm concerned that we wouldn't be able to spend it in the Hayfork area for the watershed projects and would all go to Weaverville. And this is already kind of a Weaverville centric group of applications. So I want to be able to spend it in the south part of the county too.
Okay.
Would we,
So-
Carol, I agree with that. Would we want to maybe identify a few that then we still have remaining funds available to fund, to take a vote on projects, say 18 and 19 at our next meeting? So approve a couple, but not all of them to full amount?
So just a point of order, we've got a motion and a second on the floor that we need to act on. So,
Well, aren't we doing discussion?
yeah, but some other process would need a different motion. She's suggesting that we
Oh.
approve some now.
Gotcha. There's a motion on the floor.
The motion on the floor,
But part of the discussion would be, is it a potential to essentially save the vote for projects that right now the Watershed Center can't vote on? Can we save that money potentially till we meet again in January or February? So that was the
I think that's
question.
kind of that's just to be clear, I hate to weigh in. I think what the motion is to save the money that you have and then readdress it at your next meeting about whether you want to look at putting it into some of the projects you've already funded and that you've agreed to. At the same meeting, you're going to review the one that's been tabled, which makes sense because it's tabled. So if it doesn't go forward, you may have $50,000 more. You don't have a decision on that one. So it would make sense then to, I think if I understood what was proposed, right, it was to hold on to the money you have and then look at what's left at your next meeting, essentially. Is that correct, Pat?
That's
Is that what I heard?
Yes.
yes, yes.
So just point of order. So the unfunded amounts for the projects that we only partially funded is about $250,000. And we have 130,000 then to maybe put towards those.
Okay, so we have about half as much money as we cut from projects.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the question and do the vote. So the vote is to hold on to the money, move it forward to the next meeting in the new year and go from there. Carol Fall,
Well, so we're going to bring it up right at the first January meeting? Is that what you're saying? Then-
at least to begin to figure out a process.
I'm concerned about the time frame. What if you decide you want to bring the
Okay.
West Weaver folks in and have a, yeah.
So in the new year, I don't care what meeting.
okay, aye.
Glenn Hoxie. Aye. Lorenza,
Lorenza,
Patney,
you, yes, okay. Brian,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Arnold,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Randy,
yes.
Amelia, Nick,
Yes.
Sarah's gone. Sonny,
Yes.
Pat, yes. So it passes. So I think, is there any other business? On,
So is there some information from the Forest Service on when the new proposals would be requested and things like that?
so do you know about new money and when it will be available and we can start the process again, Lejean?
They've given us no guidance as to when future allocations are going to be distributed. I'll follow up with Washington office and see if they have any inkling as to when that's going to happen.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
even though the infrastructure bill passed, we're still under a CR, so there's a lot of weirdness in the budget and those kinds of things right now.
Right, as or Bob,
Lejean, do you know the dates were calendared for next meetings, please?
Next two meetings we have on the FRN are January 10th and 24th.
At 4 or 4:30, Pat?
well, let's say 4 o'clock. Because I'm just not confident that we're going to be in the full live mode yet. And we may be still using the Zoom thing.
Thanks. This way we can all calendar it.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
did we notice those meetings publicly as starting at 4:30?
I'll have to pull that up to see if I changed it to the 4 o'clock that we've been doing recently. Give me 1 second here.
Let us know.
It doesn't really matter from my understanding. There's a little bit of flexibility in the system. They want those meetings out. The process that they want is for us to get those meetings published to the local communities before those are happening. And any changes that are happening, they just want the public to know about them. And then we can inform the FRN, the Federal Register, about those changes at a later date. So it doesn't really matter, but we try to get it as accurate as possible.
Okay. Tara, any closing comments?
No, I was hopeful going into the meeting, and I think that Lejean has his hand up, or he's giving me the finger, the one finger.
Just before you give closing comments, sorry. Do we want to stick with the Board of Supervisors office? Is that something that's available to us, Jill? Or do we want to shift that back over to the Education office?
It would be easier to shift it back to the Office of Education.
Okay.
And remember, we did this in part because we were expecting huge crowds of applicants. But because we had the Zoom option, all but 2 of them joined us by Zoom.
Okay, so I will make note of that when I send out the notice to everybody.
Well, I better double check to make sure those dates work for the Office of Education,
Yes.
and neither of them
I'll
are
be in
here.
touch with you and you let me know.
Yeah. Forenza.
Oh, I was just saying that 3 people came in person.
Yep. There were 3 people.
Three people. Right, I'm sorry. Actually, 4 people, 3 applicants. So, okay. Anyway, Tara, any closing?
Just, boy, you guys, I was optimistic when we started, and I appreciate the way we worked through the areas where we had common agreement. That went quickly. You guys did a great job of hearing everybody out. Appreciate the clarity on who was abstaining on which votes. I think we have a really clear record. And I just really appreciate the way that the meeting went. And I'm excited that we got through it so quickly. It's not even 8:30, Pat. You're breaking your curve here.
Yeah, well, it's the holiday time, you know, you can have the rest of the evening off.
Gosh, thanks.
Let it snow, let it snow.
Please.
So anybody, I do want to thank everybody for their diligence and their making the time and their willingness to stick around on those longer nights. But I think it was worthwhile. We got a lot of really good stuff done. I would like people to think about how you would want to refine our process for the next, not for the reviewing the little bit of money we still have left, but are there ways that you would like to see the process from beginning, submitting, advertising for proposals through tonight done differently? There are ways that we can improve that. Please think about that. Maybe we can talk about that in January when we meet. With that, happy holidays. And once again, a special thanks to our ex officio RAC member, Jill Cox, for being the mistress of the computer systems here. So thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Drive safely if you have to drive somewhere to get home. And if you're here, take cookies with you.
Thanks, Pat.
Happy
Thanks,
holidays,
everybody.
everyone.
Hey, Nick, thanks, everybody. Thanks. Bye all.
Yeah.
Rural schools and.
I'll see you next time.
That's Title I.
To your wife.
Thanks for printing it.
Oh, that's okay.
Thanks, Joe.
I should have
You're
printed
welcome. Good to
copies
see
for
you, Brian.
everybody because other
Take
people.
care.
See you later,
Okay.
Brian. Thanks a lot. Have a great Christmas.
January's next meeting.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Oh.